Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Rover Product Enhancements v5.25, Bulk Check-in, Billing Expanded, and more, presented by StaynTouch Implementation Consultant, Chris Devlin. I'm your host, Erin Fisher, the content writer here at StaynTouch. Today's presentation will cover how you can get the most out of Rover v5.25 product release. In this webinar, we will discover the Do Not Move field added to the reservations data space for custom exports, explore the ability to add multiple parameters to tax rule, review the works at field added to the guest and ProForma invoices, identify the flag guest indicator added to additional screens, explore the addition of bulk check-in, discover the header and footer added to the AR invoice, review new reports added to scheduled reports, explore reports that are now exportable, highlight new IP-based access restrictions, illustrate how the void bill will show company address when company invoice is locked and voided, and identify updates to the final checkout pop-up to allow users to stay on the guest bill. We will have a short Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Feel free to submit questions throughout the presentation, and we will answer them in the order they are received at the end. And that's all I have for right now. Chris, I'm going to hand the presentation over to you.
Thank you so much, Erin, and thanks everyone for joining today. I'm going to go ahead and start presenting my screen, and hopefully everyone can see that just fine. Perfect. So we've got a lot to get through today. We're going to start by taking a look at the Do Not Move field, which has been added to the reservation data space for custom exports. So if you're not using custom exports currently, this is a really great way for you to mine some data within your property. Create some specific exports that might be valuable for you to use within your property. I'm just going to move this out of the way. Bear with me just 1 second here. There we go. So under custom exports, you can go ahead and create a new export, and within the reservations data table, we'll now find that we have the Do Not Move option. You'll see there's a lot of different data table options here. So this again is a really great way for you to create these different reports that might be useful for you specific to your property if the existing reports that we have in there aren't really what you're looking for. So lots of great options in here. If you're not currently using it, definitely go ahead and take a look and play around in here. But the Do Not Move is being added, and there's more fields being added quite frequently too, so keep a lookout for that. The next thing we're going to take a look at is our ability to add multiple parameters to a tax rule. So I'm going to navigate to a different property here, and I have actually created under settings and financials, a charge code 7103, which is a tax charge code for state sales tax. And I've enabled multiple parameters to this tax rule. So if we scroll down slightly, you'll see that we have the state sales tax at a base amount of 8%. What I've done here is I've actually created a 10% tax rule that's being invoked from a particular date. So from the 1st of January 2021, moving forward through 2031, it's 10%. However, with the multiple parameters, I've been able to invoke 6 room types to which this should not apply, which are being excluded from this tax rule. And if I click down here, you'll see that I'm actually excluding my standard room types. So my single, my bunk, my king, my queen, my corner, and my classic king. So really just my suites are being impacted by this 10% rule. So to see this in action, if I go ahead and actually take a look at a rate query, and we'll go ahead and click on new, and my property is in the past here, so I'm just going to quickly scroll through to December, and let's just start on the 30th, and we'll do it for, say, 10 nights. If I take a look at a single room, so a standard room type, you'll notice that the tax rate stays consistent throughout, as it should based on the rule that we have determined here, because it's been excluded from that change. But if we choose a suite, if all goes to plan, we do see that tax rate amount change on the 1st. So this is a great option if you do ever have a circumstance where you need to have multiple tax rules invoked on a particular tax transaction code. So we can now enable that for your property. Next, we're going to take a look at the works at field, which has been added to both the guest and the ProForma invoices. So this is enabled under our stationery, which is in settings and settings, hotel and staff, and stationery. So if we go under our invoices and guest invoice, you'll see we have this show works at field, which I've toggled on. Additionally, under ProForma invoice, if you have this enabled for your property, you can also toggle on the show works at field here. So if I navigate over to my dashboard, and if we go under our arrivals, let's take a look at Christopher Devlin here. If we open up the guest card, I've put in StaynTouch under the works at field. And with that in place, if I go into bill and charges and open up the invoice, just the regular invoice in this case, and if we take a look here, you'll see that the works at field is displaying above the guest information here as intended. And that will also be the case with the ProForma invoice. ProForma invoice obviously displaying the anticipated charges. And we're seeing the works at field displayed there too. While we're on this screen, you'll notice that we actually have the flagged guest indicator showing here. Excuse me. This is something that was released as part of 5.23, you may recall. So this indicator, we've actually included in a couple of additional screens in the system now. In order to activate the flagged guest indicator where you have this red outline and the small hand, you can do that within the guest card just by toggling it on at the bottom right-hand corner, this flag guest, along with putting in a reason. I just put in testing for webinar. So I've gone ahead and flagged myself. And you'll now see this showing in various screens throughout the system. And I'm just going to quickly highlight that for us here. So as an example, if I go to the dashboard, you'll see that we can see the flag guest indicator in arrivals. We can also see it, for example, in departures. You'll actually see it in any of the different tiles from the dashboard. So mobile check-in, queued, stayovers, VIPs, late checkout, all these different tiles you'll be able to see it in. We can also see it in some different areas. If I go, for example, into groups and into a group rooming list, such as the McGlone Howard wedding. And if I scroll down here, we also have it activated for display here. In the Actions Manager, you can also see the flagged guest indicator here for the action that we have for Christopher Devlin. And then lastly, within the invoice search screen. So if I go to Financials and Invoice Search, and I search for Devlin, oops, I can't spell my own name apparently. Here you can see all the different invoices for Christopher Devlin, and they are also showing the flagged guest indicator there too. Next, we're going to take a look at the addition of the bulk check-in functionality, which is being activated for the properties. So this functionality, I can show you here in our Wexford Bay property. If I go to my arrivals screen, you'll see on the top left-hand corner, I have the option to toggle between all and bulk check-in. If I toggle over to bulk check-in, it says this will check in a total of 4 reservations. I'm going to go ahead and select check-in. Bulk check-in is initiated. So let's talk about what this has done. For bulk check-in to perform, a room must be assigned. The room must be clean or inspected, depending upon your property settings. It has to be vacant. It must not be in pre-check-in or queued status, because that will be handled separately. The room cannot be out of order or out of service. And when that is checked in by bulk check-in, it will show in the activity log that it was checked in via bulk check-in. In order for you to activate this particular functionality, you can do this in the settings, under reservation settings, and you have this bulk check-in toggle that you can activate here. As a quick point of note, if you do have hourly reservations active for your property, you will not have the option for bulk check-in. That is intended functionality. So if you don't see it as an option, that is probably because you're using hourly reservations. So don't be alarmed if you don't see it. That's just the reason behind that. It is intended functionality. If you have bulk check-in option activated, you can actually control who has the options to use bulk check-in. That is a permission under hotel and staff, permissions. You'll see the bulk check-in permission, which you can assign to the different roles. So only those users that you wish to have that permission can then go ahead and actually use that functionality. So that's our bulk check-in functionality. Next, we're going to be taking a look at our header and footer, which has been added to the AR invoice. This is available to us under our hotel and staff and stationery. And if we navigate to invoices, company and travel agent invoice, and our AR invoice. Now I've gone ahead and put in new custom header field and new custom footer field just so we have some text in there to display. So if we want to see how that looks, I'm going to navigate to my financials and accounts receivable. And we'll just pull up a particular account here. Let's go ahead and choose Carlson Wagonly as an example. And let's take the first invoice that's here and we'll print this out. And if we scroll in here, you'll see the new custom header field is displaying and the new custom footer field is displaying at the bottom. So this is active and you can go ahead and start using that at your property right away if you would like to. The next thing we're going to be taking a look at is the new reports that have been added to our scheduled reports. So if I navigate to reports and schedule a report or export, there are two new reports that have been added to the scheduled reports. And these are namely our rooms out of order and out of service and our rate adjustment report. So you can now go ahead and start scheduling these to be exported on a custom scheduled to an email or any export that you would like, any delivery that you would like. We also have reports that are now exportable, and I have these ready to view in my reports inbox. These are the comparison report and the daily transactions report. You'll notice that we now have this download option for both. So if I go ahead and click on the download for both, these are downloaded as a CSV file. And from my computer, if I go ahead and click on them, that will open up automatically in Excel for me. So it's a great option to have these downloaded directly into CSV, which you can then open up in Excel or a comparable piece of software for you. We've also added the ability to restrict access to Rover by property to a whitelisted IP address range. So this is managed under our settings, under hotel and staff and security. So with this, Rover access can now be restricted by property to a whitelisted IP address range. And as part of this functionality, the hotel admin users now have the ability to configure IP address ranges, and any user accessing Rover will be authenticated by their login credentials and then checked against the configured whitelisted IP address ranges here. So you would put in a description, a start IP address, an end IP address range of the range, and then you would activate that here. If a user is not operating within the defined whitelisted IP address ranges, because you can have more than one, they'll receive a notification indicating that their current network does not have access to the hotel. So this is a way that you can prevent users from accessing your hotel if they're not within those specified IP addresses. So this is something that quite a few of our customers have requested, and we're really excited to see this in production. So that's something that you can start using right away, and that's available for us in production as of now. Next, we have the void bill, which will show company address when the company invoice is locked and voided. And for this, I have a video to display. This is particular to those companies, to those properties that have this functionality enabled. So this is not for all properties, but if you do have this functionality enabled, this will be a great enhancement for you. So for this, I have a video to display. We're going to navigate to our stayovers, and we're going to bring up Christopher Devlin and go to our bill and charges. And here you see I'm using the company address that's associated with the reservation. We're going to go ahead and settle this invoice. And in order to close the invoice, I'm going to navigate to the invoice button and generate invoice. This will close the invoice, and printing will finalize that. And if we take a look at the invoice, we'll see that we have the company information on the top, as we should. That all looks good. And now the bill is locked, but we realize that we've made a mistake and we have to void this bill. So we're going to select the void bill option. And I'll just put in demo as a reason for that. That's gone ahead and voided the bill for us, but what we want to make sure is happening is that in bill 2, that voided invoice also has the company information. And if we go ahead and print that, we'll see that that is now the case. Once we zoom in, the company information is maintained. So that is the enhancement as of 5.25 for those properties with that functionality enabled. And now, last but not least, by any means, something that has also been requested by many of our customers, which we're very excited to talk about, is an enhancement to our departure flow. So as an enhancement to our departure flow, we've enabled users to have the option to stay on the guest bill or go to the dashboard. So this is particularly useful for those properties that find themselves having to print invoices quite frequently. So as you'll see here, if I review bill 1 and complete checkout on Tyrus's reservation, and we'll go ahead and make payment, I'm now presented with this option. Oh, it actually just went away. Let me try that again. Bear with me one moment. Let's try that with Paul Pierce. There we go. So we now have this new option where you see go to dashboard or stay on guest bill. You will notice this particular option has this room status ready and not ready. That's dependent upon having the enable room status update at checkout option, which is found under settings, rooms, and housekeeping settings. So that is a different option. But the go to dashboard and stay on guest bill option is now present for all properties. So if you do need to stay on the guest bill after checkout to perhaps generate an invoice, you can now do so. And then you can go ahead and print the invoice from here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to Erin to open it up for any questions that we may have. So Erin, back over to you.
All right, thank you, Chris, for that insightful presentation. I'd now like to take to the floor to offer some for some questions. Remember, you can submit questions through the question box in the middle of the control panel. So our first question is from Nicholas. If it is a corporate account, will it link the account name to the worksat field?
No, it won't actually. So the worksat field is pulling in from the guest card. So that actually is that specific field in the guest card itself. So it directly relates to, let me just jump into an account here. It directly relates to this field here. And that's of use if you are not associating a particular reservation with a company. So for example, if you have a guest who says, I need to have an invoice, I don't want to necessarily create a company card for this invoice. I just need my company name on my invoice. You can put in the worksat, and that way the company name is on there too, rather than having to create a company account, a company card, I should say, and then associating it with the reservation.
Okay. And then another from Nicholas. For the IP addresses, can you go by user roles? Say an admin can go on any IP address where a front desk agent would not be able to.
No, it will lock down all users for the property to the IP ranges.
Great, thank you. And then next, will bulk check-in alert me if a credit card declines?
That's a great question. It will not. It actually is a process of just basically checking in all guests regardless. So you would have to, as part of the process, make sure that you run a credit check report immediately after doing that to ensure that credit has been achieved, because there will be no alert to tell you that credit has not been authorized on a particular reservation. So it will just go ahead and authorize or go ahead and check the reservations in. You would need to verify that authorization has been captured by running the credit check report after the fact.
Great, and then the last one, are IP-based access restrictions something everyone needs to set?
Oh no, absolutely not. You can certainly leave it unrestricted and have open access just like you do now. It's not essential, it's just something that some of our customers have requested. So it's a new feature. You don't need to change anything if you don't need to. That's absolutely up to you.
Great, and then since there are no more questions, I'm gonna take to the floor to offer some final thoughts. So today we discovered the do not move field added to the reservations data space for custom exports, explored the ability to add multiple parameters to tax roll, reviewed the works at field added to the guest and ProForma invoices, identified the flag guest indicator added to additional screens, explored the addition of bulk check-in, discovered the header and footer added to the AR invoice, reviewed new reports added to scheduled reports, explored reports that are now exportable, highlighted new IP-based access restrictions, illustrated how the void bill will show company address when company invoice is locked and voided, and identified updates to the final checkout pop-up to allow users to stay on the guest bill. With that, I'd like to conclude our presentation. Thank you all for coming. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to email me at aaron.fisher@StaynTouch.com. Thanks again.